I had a request from a viewer who's trying to 3D print this Batman costume that he downloaded from Thingiverse, and he's having a lot of issues with the mesh, and I thought we'd just go through and I'd show you how I go about cleaning up something like this. So the first thing we're going to do is along the way I'll give you some tips and tricks on optimizing your workflow in Blender as well. If we look under the view menu listing, we'll see that we've got some options for clipping. So I tend to drag this all the way to the left so that I zoom in, it won't clip the mesh as I zoom right in. You can leave the end set to 1K. Display scale is set to 1, we'll leave it at 1. But if we're finding that we can't get in close enough, then I might drop that scale down. But in this instance, we'll leave it set to 1. Okay, so let's look at this mesh here. Oh, the other thing too is if you look at the bottom left here, you'll see I've got my screencast keys on and elapsed time on the bottom right here. So as I select an item, you'll see that my mouse will show if I click left or right or middle, and if I press a key, you'll see what keyboard shortcut I'm using down here as well. Now, and another thing too for working in views, your / key will isolate an item. So for instance, I just want to work on the shoulder pad. If I select it first and then click the / key on my numeric keyboard, you'll see it'll just focus on that one piece and we can work on that. And if you are at this level and you'll say just want to work on this one particular polygon here, if you press the full stop or period or dot on the numeric keyboard, you'll see it'll snap straight to that and focus on that and orbit around that particular piece of geometry. This is really useful when working on meshes. So if I'm working on this side and I want to work over on this piece, I just press the full stop, period, dot on the numeric keyboard, and I'm over to this side. And then it also works for whole objects as well. Now, if you want to get back to your mesh, just press the / key again, and we'll see the whole mesh. So it's really good for just focusing on little bits and pieces you're working on, and it'll just isolate those pieces. And you can even go down, drill down further than that by, say, if you want to select, just work on these series of polygons here, and you want to hide all this mesh here. What I do is just press Ctrl-I to inverse the selection, H to hide, and now I can just work on period key again, those selection of polygons without worrying about what's around it. And to get back to where I was, it's Alt-H to show everything again, and then / will take me back to my mesh. So you can go in and out and just focus on the bits you need to work on without having to worry about deleting geometry or moving geometry to different layers, and it's just a really nice fast way of working. So the first thing I see in this mesh when I look at it is these dark polygons. Now what these dark polygons signify to me is flipped normals. So a normal is a polygon, an indicator of the direction the face of the polygon is facing. So if I select one of these pieces that has flipped normals, like this piece here, I'll just make sure I've got two. It looks like there's two pieces there. I'll make sure I've got both those, and I'll just / to focus on those. And you can see these dark areas here. If I switch to edit mode and to polygons, and I'll select this piece, and if I come down to, where's my mesh display option here, and click on this face box here, that will show my normals. You can see the direction that they're facing, and your default might be set to 1, which you might have something like this. So just set the size down to 0.1, so you've got a much more manageable view of the normals. And you can see here the correctly facing normals are showing the normal, and it's facing out away from the polygon, perpendicular to the polygon. In these dark areas we can't see the normals because they're facing through this side. They're coming through on this side. So those normals have been flipped. Now the other thing that I can see here is that we've got two pieces of geometry, one on top of the other. If I move one away, we can see this is a solid piece. This is just like a shell. It's just a thin wall, single polygon shell of polygons. So I think the creator originally had intended this to be joined to this as one piece. So we'll do that, we'll fix that as well. I'll just take that back to where it was, undo. And knowing now that I've got two pieces, it's good just to, if you have two pieces, just to select them both and just pull them apart for a tick and have a look and see what you're dealing with before you go any further, and then you know what you're working with. So we'll work on these two pieces. I'll go back out again. I'll just focus on that piece. I'll select just the one I want, which is this one here with the flipped normals, / to focus on that. And the first thing I'm going to do is to try and fix these flipped normals. So I'll go to polygon, mesh selection, edit mode, and I'll select all my faces. So A deselects, A selects all. And sometimes when I'm working on something, if I'm want to select this polygon or this face up here, if I select it with another polygon or another face selected, sometimes you end up with both selected. So before I do anything, I always hit A to make sure I've deselected everything, then A again if I want to select everything, just to make sure that I've dropped whatever I was doing last. Because I've had issues where I select the face and start moving it, but I'm also moving faces down somewhere else. So my practice is just to A, deselect, and then start reselecting. So A, just to make sure I've got everything selected. And I'll go to Mesh, Normals, and Recalculate Outside. Now we can see that it's sort of fixed it, in that now all the faces are facing the right direction on this side, but this side's still dark, so it's telling me there's still a problem. And recalculating the faces didn't solve my problem. So what I'm going to do is to just switch to wireframe mode and inspect a little further. Now I'm going to turn off my normals because I find them distracting. Now looking into this mesh here, what I should be seeing is a face or a shell on this side and a shell on this side, and there should be nothing inside. It should be hollow. If there's something inside it, that means that's non-manifold geometry. It shouldn't be there. So let's have a look. You can see this is a face, this is a face, face, and I'm seeing these faces here, which span from the front to the back of this mesh. That shouldn't be there. That's what's causing our issue. That's our non-manifold geometry. So to clean that up quickly and easily, you can see this has been triangulated. Triangles are not something you want to be working with inside any polygon modeling package. They just make things really hard to work with. They disrupt the flow of their geometry. They disrupt the flow of your tools. So the first thing I'm going to do is to turn this triangulated geometry back to quads. So I'll go back to mesh mode and select everything and go to mesh, faces, tries to quads. So it's going to remove those triangles, and I'm back to quads again. And you really want quads for when you're doing subdivision services. It's just going to work much nicer. In this instance here, I can see that this flow is broken, so I'm going to fix that. I'm just going to select that vertice or vertex and that vertex and press J to join. And now I'm going to dissolve this edge and this edge to clean that up. So I right click that one, right click that one, Control X will dissolve those edges. So that's clean through there. This has got a flow going through that way, so that's okay. Let's have a look through here. That's okay. What's happening down here? We don't need this edge here because really, unless it's focusing on that. No, it's just a flat face, so that's really doing nothing. We can get rid of that because that gives us our four-sided polygon. 1, 2, 3, 4 vertexes. Same here, we don't need this one. That's back to a 4-sided polygon. Now up here it's a bit messy, we don't need this one. And I think we could connect this so it's just not terminating. It won't matter for now, but I'll just do it. J to join those. So I'm just trying to get this mesh a little cleaner before I start working on it. What's happening here? We've got triangles. We don't need this edge here. That can go. And we don't need this edge here. I'll leave it in for now. You can see the triangulation is still causing issues along here, and I really ideally would like to go down and just clean that up. Because I really want to get back to quads. Now most of the time when you open a mesh it should be quads unless you're opening an STL file, which will automatically triangulate when it exports. Let's get rid of that. So my viewport shortcut keys are Alt for orbiting, Control Alt zoom in and out, and Alt Shift to pan. They're keyboard shortcuts which were carried over from Lightwave, and once you get used to using those, it really helps you to get around your interface nice and fast, and you don't have to look at the keyboard. You just know. It's just sort of it's just fast. I find it really fast and really easy to get around to doing things. You can also use your scroll wheel to zoom in and out, or click your scroll wheel to orbit. And I think you can shift click your scroll wheel to pan. But I find those keyboard shortcuts that I normally use, just the Alt, that's Control Alt and Shift Alt. It's surprising it's not showing up down here actually. I thought that would automatically show up, but it's not. They really help me get around the viewport fast. Okay, let's get back to our mesh. So we've got the non-manifold geometry inside here. Now you see that now that I've removed those triangles, we have nice quads flowing through here. So that means that I can just pick an edge between two rows of faces and right click, and it's going to select that whole row. And if I come back to here and I'm going to click Alt and Shift and right click to grab the next row, and I can just press delete faces. That'll get rid of those. So now let's have a look. If we do our mesh normals, recalculate outside, we can see it's looking a little better, but I think there's still issues there. So let's interrogate our mesh a little bit more and look along these edges. Now I can see, and let's switch to vertex mode. Select the vertex. That's okay. That's okay. What I'm looking for is doubled vertices. That's okay. So let's just do a little procedure. We'll select all the vertices, W to bring up this shortcut, and remove doubles. No vertices have been removed. I like to slide this all the way down to the left, which is your closest resolution. So in this particular piece, there's no doubled vertices. I'm not sure. Well, let's see what happens. Maybe that has cleaned up. Still looks a little dark, but let's have a look. I'll recalculate outside again. Let's put a subdivision surface modifier on this. Oh, it's already got one on it. There we go. And we'll bump that up just for smoothness. Alright, so there's still an issue there. Yeah, so we still have flipped normals here. What's causing that? Let's turn on our normals again. Yep, that's still flipped. So there's something which is disturbing the flow of this mesh. This looks interesting. There's something going on here. Let's have a look at this. Okay, just select that vertex and focus on that. That looks alright. That looks alright. It's weird. If I've got faces in here. No, they're external faces. It's clean. We've got a problem somewhere. Trying to find. Let's turn off our normals for now. Let's look at our edges. It's fine. It's fine. Okay, this is a bit of a curious one because we've got rid of the non-manifold geometry. Well, I thought I had. Now that's interesting how we've got that line coming through there and that line coming through there. Let's have a look what's causing that. That can be an indication of doubled edges, but that looks fine. All right, let's try something. Let's take, I'm just going to press C and use my scroll wheel to grow this brush selector, and I'm just going to select the polygons I want to work on. Press enter and reselect that tool. C, enter, shift to add these pieces, and I'm going to duplicate those. Shift D, press X to move them on the X axis. And let's have a look at that. A, select that piece, mesh, normals, recalculate outside. That seems to be fine. Why is it doing that? Alright, let's try something else. I'm going to select Alt, select on one of these edges and click Alt to select that loop. I'm going to delete that loop of faces. Aha, what happened there? I think that was our problem maybe. Mesh, normals, there we go. Still got an issue up in here, so this is darker, so that's telling me that's an issue. So let's undo that. Okay, I see what's happening. Alright, so we have got still non-manifold geometry. Alright, so this row of faces, yeah, there's our problem. There's a row of faces in there which should not be there, which is causing this, what we see here. So this geometry, if I delete those faces, and now Let's recalculate outside. There we go. All right, so there we have a row of faces in there of non-manifold geometry, which was causing the issue. So we had this edge here, and let's undo that. So the surface flowed from here onto this face, and let's just focus on there. So it flowed from here onto this face, around through here, down in here and around, and can go right around and flow right through and all the way around. But inside was another row of polygons, which you can see, we can't see them from the outside, we can only see the indication of the edge of those faces that were inside this mesh where it should have been hollow. So this is the non-manifold geometry which was causing the problem, which wasn't obvious like the ones in the middle through the mesh here were. It was those ones on the edge. So if I just delete those faces and we have a look now, we've got a nice, and I'll just run mesh, normals, recalculate outside. We've got a nice mesh that's clean now. So we can turn our subdivision modifier on, and we've got a nice piece of geometry which is clean and ready for 3D printing. So that piece there, now let's look at these two pieces in combination, because this piece here is a separate piece. We'll turn this off, subdivision modifier off, and this is a piece. Let's just focus on that piece, the one there, and it's just a shell. So I think the creator had intended for this shell to be merged with the other piece, so you can just print it in one piece. That's what my assumption is. So let's make this a piece where we can merge it to the other piece and just have it as one piece. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a face. Actually, no, what I'm going to do is remove those triangles, faces, tris to quads, get rid of those triangles, and I'm going to create a face for the back of this. Now the easiest way to do that is just select that and press F to fill it, but that's not really a good option, because as you can see, we've got issues where it's trying to span across that whole edge as one piece. We really need geometry in there like we've got here. So to do that, the quickest and easiest way is to delete that face, and I'm going to select that row of edges again, which is just right click on an edge, and it'll select the edge loop, and I'm going to press space, and I'm going to type in grid, and it's going to find this a tool here called grid fill. So if I click on that, you can now see it's filled that face with a grid, and it's matching up pretty closely to what the front is, if not identically. And that's the best way to create a face for the back of geometry like that. And you can alter that while the tool's freshly applied and you haven't done anything else. You can change the spans, and it'll reorder the mesh if it's not quite lining up the way you like it. By default, it worked out pretty good. Offset, you can do offsets and really optimize it to find the exact flow that you're looking for, but switch it to make sure it's quads first before you start doing that, and you'll have a much easier time. So now we've got that piece there. We can put a modifier on that and have a look. That's working quite nicely. So I'm going to delete that subdivision surface modifier on there, / key to go back to both my pieces. Going to select both those pieces now, / key again, and we're going to merge those two pieces together. Now I know both my meshes are clean. Don't do this if your meshes aren't clean. Clean all your meshes up first. First thing we're going to do is select each individual piece, press Ctrl A and apply to scale. Now if we look up here and we'll go to transform, another keyboard shortcut. If you click on these options here to expand them, what you can do is, if you just want to focus on one thing at a time, if you control click, it'll just open up that particular part and you don't have all the other stuff you need to look at, and it's a lot less confusing. So I just control click on transform. You can see here my scale is set to 0.078, and that's going to cause issue if you're trying to use Boolean operations and things like that. So the first thing you want to do is to apply the scale. So I'll press Control A, apply, menu is loaded, and I'll press scale. You see now my scale is set to 1. The dimensions haven't changed, it's still the same dimensions and everything's identical, but the actual local scale of that particular piece of mesh is now set to 1. I'll do the same for this piece, Control A, scale, and it's now set to 1. So now I know my modifiers are going to work properly. So let's join these two pieces together. I'll select the first piece, I'll get rid of my subdivision surface modifier, we don't need it at the moment, and go to Boolean. I'm going to use a union Boolean operation. I'm going to switch this to carve, and with my eyedropper select tool I'm going to select this other piece of geometry. Now you can see there, if we have a look, it's joined those two pieces together. Our original piece is still there, but that mesh now has the two pieces joined together. So we don't need to apply that. We can go back to our view of the whole object, and I'll just select that. I don't want to select the inside piece, just the piece we want to work on. We'll go back / to focus on that. And now what I can do is go and load my subdivision surface modifier and have a look and see what's happening there. Alright, now I can see I've got issues here. Let's bump it up. Yeah, it's not ideal. I think what could be happening is that this piece of mesh is not pushing into this other piece of mesh enough. So what I'm going to do is just turn these off for a moment, go back to both those pieces, focus on those, and if I have a look, I want to make sure that this piece of geometry is definitely pushing into this other piece of geometry. So I'll go back to edit mode, and you'll see that my face, the back face, is still selected, and I'm just going to extrude that face by pressing E, or those faces, and making sure that it's pushing into this second piece of geometry more. Now let's have a look at our Boolean operations. We'll turn them back on, and we'll go back out. Okay, I can see this is where we could be getting issues. Let's turn those off. Yeah, I think this piece of geometry here is too close to that piece. So what we can do is alt click to select that row. We don't need a whole row, so we'll just select that piece and that piece, shift select, and I'm just going to move. I can see here. All right, looking here. Yeah, really ideally you want these vertices. Oh, that looks pretty good. I think it's just this one here. So let's just move those up and in a little. Yeah, I'm not liking that. I think we can do this a better way. There's going to be a lot of mucking around to try and fix that. So the creator obviously intended this to come in, go like that, and then step out again. So let's do that just with one piece of geometry without having to do booleans and things of that nature. So we'll just select that. We'll go back to the whole object. I'm only going to select that one piece, focus on that again. Well, let's take off this Boolean operator, and we'll turn off that subdivision surface modifier and switch to edit mode, face selection. Let's grab these faces. Press C, bring up my brush, and we'll just grab these faces. Enter to clear the brush tool, and shift select these. And I just Alt Shift. While I've got Shift held down, I can just press Alt and pan. It's just a nice way of working that keyboard shortcut sequence. And can zoom in. Alright, so I've got those faces selected, and these are the faces that the creator wanted to be beveled out or pushed out. So let's just press E and we'll push them out. Press Tab to clear, and we've got that same piece of geometry. Now, to a keyboard shortcut for adding a subdivision surface modifier is just Control 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. And if I go Control 1, you see it's a lower res modifier, it's just automatically being applied. Control 5 will give me a higher res. Now that's working much nicer. I think that's a better way of doing it. Just selecting those faces and extruding them out, and we've got a much nicer piece of geometry. Alright, let's see how that looks if we take it to a slicer. So I'm just going to export this piece, even though all these pieces are visible. All I want is just this one piece here. So I go to File, Export, STL, Scene Selection, Scene Unit. Let's try a scale of, normally I go scale 1000 out to Cura 3.6, but because this is not a scene that I created, the scaling might be different inside that scene, so we'll give it a test, see how that goes. And the big thing to make sure you've got ticked on is this Apply Modifiers, because we want the modifier to be applied as the STL is being created, so it just creates a clean STL. And if you have a stack of 5 or 6 modifiers, it'll just go through and apply each modifier in the correct order so that you get a nice clean mesh. So apply modifiers and selection only. We don't export all the other stuff, just that one piece that we've exported. And you can see with Cura loaded now, our piece is here, and we can test slicing. Just prepare it. The dimensions are 75 by 72 by 125. That sounds right. So the scale was right at 1000 out of Blender. And let's look at our layer view. And if we look, we can see that's sliced perfectly and is definitely ready to print. Okay, well I think that'll help you, Silvers, who contacted me to show how I would work on a piece like that. I think it's a pretty comprehensive look at how to fix non-manifold geometry. I'm sure that within that little video, you'll have all the answers you need to complete the whole suit. So if you're out there and you're watching this video and you have problems you're struggling with, shoot me an email. My email is in the comments in the description below, and I'll have a look and see if I can sort your problem out for you and make a video, and I'm sure that will help other people as well. So that's it for today. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll catch you later.